In this video, I'm going to show you how to build your brand new gaming PC, your brand new workstation, your brand new all-around web browsing PC, your brand new PC. We're going to be utilizing the Asus TUF Gaming Z690 Plus Wi-Fi D4 motherboard, along with the Intel Core i9-1200KF processor, cooled by the brand new Sapphire NITRO S360A liquid cooling unit, as well as the EVGA P5 power supply, 1000 watts. We're going to be getting video from the EVGA GeForce RTX 3080 Ti FTW3, along with 16 gigs of Patriot Viper 4100 MHz RAM, and the super fast Sabrent Rocket 4 plus 1 TB M.2 SSD. All of this is going to be housed inside of the Corsair 7000D Airflow chassis. So anyway, let's get to it real quick. So when you receive a brand new motherboard, it's going to have a little cover over here. This is covering the pins where you would plug in the CPU. So we'll just go ahead and pop that out. Now, don't throw this away. Save it somewhere in case you need to remove the CPU at some point. You could put this back to protect these pins. One little bent pin can ruin your entire system. So be very careful. With this exposed, we're going to go ahead and push down on this little arm and slide out to release it from this locking mechanism right here. So push down, slide out, and just raise. It's going to lift on its own, and then just push it out more. Then we'll push down right over here, and that's going to go ahead and open this up. At this point, we'll go ahead and take the CPU out of the little container, the little shell that comes inside of the box. Okay, now make sure not to touch anything down here. You just don't want grease and oil and everything to get on there. Anything you may have in your fingertips, potentially messing up the contact between the CPU and the pins over here. If you're a little unsure of how to properly place this, you'll notice on the CPU, a little notch right over here. Just put my finger so you can see it right here. Then right here, and right here. They're going to go ahead and match up with the little notches right over here on the motherboard. And then at that point, you can just drop it right into place. You don't need to push it. It will fall right into place. At that point, you can just drop this tray. And then you can place your finger right over here. And then we'll push this arm down. And we'll do it in the same manner we did before. Pull this arm down, slide it a little bit out. That way it would come under this little locking mechanism here, or retention mechanism. And there you go, perfect. Coming back down is going to be a little bit difficult. You're gonna have to put a little pressure, and that pressure is the same when we removed it the first time, how it raised the arm. So it's going to be the same kind of pressure going down. So we're good here. So for RAM, you'll notice on the board, there is the silk screening, DIMM A1, DIMM A2, DIMM B1, and DIMM B2. You're not able to just throw in the memory any which way. If you only have one stick of RAM, you can put it under A2. If you have two sticks of RAM, you can put it under A2 and B2. And of course, if you have four, you can just utilize all four. Now, since we have two sticks of RAM, we're going to go ahead, open up A2. And when I say open up, I mean push this little locking mechanism out. And that goes ahead and unlocks the DIMM slot. Now there's two ways you can put it in, of course, the wrong way and the right way. So you'll notice here, there's a notch on the memory. Then there's a little notch on each of the DIMM slots. That's gonna go ahead and line you up. So if you put it in wrong, you'll notice the memory kind of seesaws. Memory's not supposed to do that. So we'll slide it in on the left side after flipping the memory around because we had it wrong the first time. We'll slide it in on this side that doesn't unlock, and then we'll push it in on this side that does lock. And then as we push it in, you'll notice this little locking mechanism snap back into place, locking the RAM right over here. So now, if you tried to pull the RAM out, you would just pull the motherboard instead. Now we'll do the same thing for the second module. 16 gigs of RAM just installed. Since we're going to be installing the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus and M.2 drive in this system, just going to go ahead and zoom you in over here. The M.2 socket is right under here, so we'll just go ahead and remove this heatsink. Now, mind you, there's one over here and there's two underneath this heatsink, but we're going to stick to the one above the video card. So then here, we'll go ahead and just pop in the M.2 right in here, push it in. You're going to hear a little click like that, and then you can just push it down. And you're going to be using the new locking mechanism on this motherboard. So literally just turn it and it's locked in place. And now with that in place, we'll go ahead and remove the tape off of the thermal strip on the back of the heatsink just to expose the thermal pad. And then we'll go ahead and put it back down to keep the M.2 nice and cool. Now, some M.2 drives do have heatsinks, but the ones on the motherboards are typically good enough. All right, so now we've installed DDR4, the CPU, and the M.2. Now, the reason I chose a DDR4 motherboard is DDR5 just came out. The prices were horrible. You'll see on this screenshot on the screen right now. So I decided to buy not only a motherboard that was affordable, but RAM as well that was affordable. And then also to make it a little bit easier for you when it was that time that you wanted to build or upgrade your system, you could do it without hurting your budget. So let's go ahead and install the liquid cooling unit now. First off, what we're going to want to do is, since we know we're going to go ahead and put the fans right in here, we'll go ahead and put the fans right in here. Now, we're going to want air to blow through this out to the outside of the case. The part that's going to be touching the top of the case is going to be right here. We'll remove this plastic shroud in a second. Now, each of the fans is labeled 1, 2, and 3. So in order to make it easier for the installation, we're going to install it in that order. Number 1 is going to be right over here. And again, since we're having it blow through the radiator, this part over here is going to be facing inside of the case. This part is going to be facing outwards. Then we'll go ahead and grab these screws. We'll go ahead and put it there and attach it right here, 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 and here. Now we don't have to screw it in all the way just to get it in place. Now with that one there, we'll go ahead and put in fan number 2. Same way. And last but not least, fan number 3. Then I'll go ahead and just push them all together, making sure just to get rid of any additional needless space. Then while pushing down right over here, I'm going to go ahead and screw in one here, then diagonally one here, here, and here. So just holding them down. And that way there's less give when you're screwing the remaining ones in, so it settles properly. Then we'll just go ahead and repeat the process along the other 2. There's rubber on all sides of the fan on both sides as well. That way there'll be less vibration and less noise. Okay, so just moving this aside for right now. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the motherboard. And now bringing over the motherboard, we'll go ahead and flip it over. Now we're going to be utilizing the Intel backplate. There's two ways to install this. There's 1366 and 20 series, which means you'll push this pin all the way out like they are right now. And for socket 1200 and 1500, you just go ahead and push them in, and 1700 as well. So then afterwards, we'll flip it down so that the portion where the screw goes into is facing into the motherboard. And then we'll go ahead and push it into these 4 holes on the motherboard. Okay, now holding your hand here so that that doesn't go anywhere, we'll flip the motherboard over and just slide it on the table you're building on. And now you should notice all 4 of those little screw holes appear. Okay, you can see here, 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 and here. So now we'll go ahead and grab the pump itself. It comes with an AMD mounting bracket already installed, so we'll go ahead and push that in, turn it, and pull it out. So we'll grab the Intel one, slide it in, and then turn it the way we want it. All right, and it's locked in place. So now that we have the backplate in place and the retention ring on the pump, we're going to go ahead and place the standoffs right into the motherboard. These little screw holes just screwed in right in here and right over here. It's hard to get a good grip on that. One over here. And lastly, one right over here. Now with all that in place, we're going to go ahead and grab the pump and just kind of slide it into place, grabbing all the cables so none of them get in the way. And now we're going to go ahead and just slide it right into the little screws right over here. Now push it down. Now we'll go ahead and grab the thumb screws included with the screws for the 1700. And we're going to screw it in just kind of like a pilot screw, not all the way in tight. Okay, one over here. Like we did before, we're going to do one diagonally just to make sure that everything lines up while we're screwing it in. Then one over here. And then one on the opposite side over here. Okay, now that we have them all in, we can go ahead and screw in all of them in firmly. Again, I recommend you do it diagonally. All right, so now we got everything here connected. We're going to be using the cable Sapphire includes in the box so that we can bring all 3 of the fans on the radiator into one cable. Now we do that ahead of time to make the installation into the case a little bit easier. That way we don't need to fish around for these cables. So we're going to match 1 to number 1. So you can see that 1 to 1. Easy enough, just connect them there. Then 2 to 2. And then finally 3 to 3. So now that connects all 3 of these fans to this one cable. So now let's go ahead and put this inside of the case. Now normally you would want to build with the case laying down, but it's harder for me to demonstrate things to you with the case laying down. Now before you put in any motherboard, it doesn't matter if it's the Asus board, Gigabyte, MSI, whatever board you're building with, always verify that the standoffs correctly match up with your motherboard. The 7000D has them mapped out for you, but some boards still have different holes for mounting. So again, make sure it matches up, because if not, you can end up frying your board. So I've already gone ahead and checked it myself that they line up for this board. And because the board already has the IO shield built in, I don't have to thankfully worry about that. So I'll just grab the board, line it up right over here. And then also there's a reverse standoff that makes this process so much easier. Because now, even though I don't have a screw in there, this standoff right over here is a reverse standoff sticking outwards, holding the motherboard in place for me. And then that helps line up all the other screws as well. So now I'll go ahead and just screw in all the screw holes, making sure the board is in there properly. I have the case laying down because now we're going to go ahead and put the radiator towards the top of the case. And don't forget to remove this plastic shroud. You could just pull it out one by one. So then you'll just line it up whichever way works best for you and your case. In this case, looks like it's going to be perfect, easily right there. You see the hoses here aren't kinked up and they flow nicely into the radiator over here. So that was the inside of the case. Now here is the top of the case. We're going to go ahead and now line up the screws, the screw holes right over here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to be combining the radiator with the case just by putting the washer in the screw here. Now we're going to go ahead and line up wherever it fits here or wherever it fits best for us here. Let's see, I think right there would be perfect. So we'll put the first few screws in by hand, one over here, just to anchor it. And then while we're doing that, while we're lining everything up, we want to make sure that every single screw hole is shown. That way we're not missing any. If we're missing some, it could add extra vibration, extra noise. Now we'll go ahead and screw in. You'll notice, like I've been doing with all of them, I'm screwing everything in diagonally to leave less pockets of potential noise and vibration. And then we'll do one final one right up here. And now we'll start screwing them in all tightly. Again, now that we have all the screw holes lined up, Alright, so now we're completely installed, and since we missed them before, because we had the radiator blocking them, I'm going to go ahead and screw in the last two screws. Okay, now to connect the fans, this long cable, we're going to connect it to the pump through this cable right over here that comes at the very base of the tubes. We're going to go ahead and just connect it just like that. All right. In a little bit, we can go ahead and hide that cabling. We're going to go ahead and connect the all-in-one pump to the AIO pump header right over here on the motherboard. Right over here. And we'll go ahead and make it look pretty in a little bit. And then we'll connect the CPU fan cable into the CPU fan header right up here. We'll connect it to CPU fan. Right next to that is CPU opt, so we'll use fan. Easy enough to connect. So that then leaves us to extension and the motherboard ARGB connection. So then we'd have to connect this to a 3-pin RGB header. We can find one right up here on the top of the motherboard. Connect that right there. Easy enough. And lastly, we'll connect the SATA power connection into SATA power coming from the motherboard. So just make sure to match up the little L connector right over here to the L connector right over here. Now the pump and the fans have power. And now that we have the memory, the CPU and the liquid cooling unit, the M.2 and the motherboard all in place, we can go ahead and pop in the video card. During the next portion of the video, the cabling, we're going to go ahead and remove the video card because the cables will get in the way. But right now I'm just showing you a quick, easy way how to install the video card in case you've never done it before. You'll notice there is this PCIe slot, and then there is the little locking mechanism right over here. Down is unlocked, up is locked. So now we're going to go ahead and match that slot with the PCIe fingers right over here. And we're going to go ahead and line up these two slot covers that I've already removed. They're going to look exactly like these other slot covers. I've removed those. And then also these two right over here, they're going to slide in between the motherboard and the case. You'll notice these two little holes back here, I've gone ahead and circled. They're very difficult to spot. Chances are you'll never see them, but that's where these two little pieces will slide into. Now, as I slide the card, you'll notice this little locking mechanism pop up. That's locking right into this little arm here. So I'll slide that in. Now I'm going to push it and you'll notice it pop up. Okay. You notice that little mechanism. Now, if we wanted to, let's say we were removing the video card, we can use our finger or the tip of a screwdriver, and that'll go ahead and push the card out. You might have noticed it was very slight. The card just kind of slid out. Same way, I'm going to push it back in, and it just locks in place. Now, if you ever need to remove that card, it's not going to come out unless you push that in. And then afterwards, we need to screw in some screws right over here. The power supply is one of the least techie installs hardware-wise to install when you're building a PC. On the bottom of the case, there is going to be 4 little rubber pads. That's for noise dampening. On the bottom of the power supply, there's going to be a fan. You'll also notice there's going to be a little grill down here. That's going to be to suck in cool air from the bottom of the case. There's a filter cooling the power supply. So we're going to go ahead, and here's the rear of the power supply. This is where the 4 screws are going to be, or the 4 screw holes. So we'll go ahead and just place that on those rubber pads for now. Then we'll go ahead and match up the screw holes to the case. And we're going to use big old hex head screws. And like we've done before, not only installing them diagonally first, we're also going to be installing them or screwing them in very lightly, not all the way just yet, because for power supplies, sometimes the screw themselves put this in the correct place. Okay, so now with the last screw, we'll go ahead and tighten everything in. You'll notice it pushed the power supply in, and now as we're screwing it in, the power supply is going to be sliding in place. Okay, so with any power supply install, modular wise, you have to connect all the cables. This is just the build portion of the video to show you how to get all the hardware in place. All right, now that we have the system fully built, now we have to go through the cabling process. The cabling process I'm saving for the next video because it is so detailed. Just like this build, I tried to walk you through every single step to make it easy for you and then easy for you to understand as well. Maybe if you want to show someone else how to do it. So in the next video, we're going to be connecting every single cable from the power supply to the unit itself, powering the motherboard, the liquid cooling unit, all of the fans in the system, and the video card powering everything. Then after every single cable is connected to where it will work, we're going to go ahead and make it look nice and pretty, maybe enough for a showroom. The entire build process will only take about 17 minutes from start to finish, cabling and all, but to make it look nice, that takes quite some time. And then of course, this video is a little long because not only do I just put everything together, but I walk you through and I talk you through the entire process to make it easy for you, not only to understand, but maybe you want to show a friend how to build as well. Now you could do that. And then of course, you can also show them the video and that'll get it done too. This is Iggy with ThisBytesForYou showing you how to build a brand new PC from the ground up. Next video, how to cable it all. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.